Sure.
Hey, we are live. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much
Um,
for. Yeah, I've got an incredible person with me tonight. I cannot wait for you to introduce yourself. But I am so excited for this interview. This is my 11th one on this channel, and it's going to be so special. I cannot wait. So, today I am celebrating and interviewing the incredible author of a brand new book called Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow, and that is Benjamin Dean. Can I get a round of applause, everyone? Or raise your glass. Raise your glass. Raise your glass to Ben and celebrate. Yeah, and Children's Book of the Month for Waterstones as well. Amazing success straight away off the bat. You are just, incredible. Do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
yeah,
For people?
I'm Benjamin Dean, but please call me Ben. Benjamin Dean was just because Ben Dean doesn't sound, it doesn't go together very well. So Ben is just what you call me unless I'm in trouble. But yeah, I published this book behind me yesterday, and I'm still floating up in the clouds. So I'm very, very, very happy still.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that was literally just yesterday. I remember when Eve sent an email, like, oh gosh, it must have been back in October or something, or maybe November, and she was like, Gav, there is this incredible middle grade debut coming up, and I think you're going to love it. And it's called Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. And I was just like, okay, I definitely want to read that ASAP. And that just feels like, oh gosh, like no time at all. It's flew. Can't imagine what it was like for you. But
it's been like a really quick journey because I only got the deal like last May, so it's been really quick. So I feel like no time has always gone, but I also feel like it's been like 6 years. So who knows?
I do. You know what? I feel like I've seen you on my feed forever. So it's like, yeah, it's like both being quick and both not being quick. I love your tweets so much. Actually, reminder as well, I have all of Ben's socials in the description box as well. So please do check Ben out on Twitter and Instagram. He's just hilarious. So yeah, also buy Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow. There are links to that as well in the description box. So please do check that out. Yes, do it, like now. We will wait.
Stop. No.
Well, tonight's conversation is going to be spoiler-free about Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow, to the best of our ability anyway. A lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about will most likely be things that everyone already knows about the book, either through synopses, descriptions, and things like that. So don't worry, anyone, if you haven't read it yet, you will not be spoiled for anything. So as people are tuning in, Ben, honestly, I know what you're going to say, because you know what's coming up now.
I wasn't going to be caught off guard with this at all. I was like, I'm being asked these questions and then sitting here like a numpty, not knowing what I'm going to say.
Honestly, called me out. Absolutely called me out on Twitter. So as people are tuning in, I'm going to ask some like really random questions. Ben, do you wake up early or do you go to bed late?
So if you try and flip the words around now, that would confuse me. Interestingly, I was actually, when I was watching all the other authors do this and answer the question, I was like, what am I? Am I a morning person? Am I a night person? I don't think I'm either. Is that like a cheating answer? Because I'm not very good at waking up. Like 8 o'clock, I'm still kind of like zombie mode. I need coffee. I probably start getting like into my groove at about like 10. But that's not writing groove. That's just like me kind of coming around and being like vaguely conscious. But then night, I used to be a night owl when I was in uni. And then those 3 a.m., 4 a.m. nights staying up doing essays kind of caught up with me. And I definitely don't do that anymore. So yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. If we're talking about like writing, my golden time is anywhere between like 12 and 4, but not for all of that time. I don't do the whole sitting at my desk for hours on end. I do like a quick sprint, get up and go, move around, and then maybe come back to it again later that day.
Oh, okay. So I need to avoid, like, annoying you between 12 and 4.
Yes, 12 and 4 is when I'm meant to be writing first drafts for things that I'm not writing first drafts for. So.
Good to know. It is good. I don't know why, but I love asking this question because I feel like somebody's routine does say a lot about them, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm an insomniac anyway, so I don't get to sleep until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning anyway. But yeah, I don't know why, but that's usually my first question, and I just love it. I love it so much. After this, it is different. It is different. I don't know if I should save it. Honestly, I don't think I've asked. I might have asked 2 or 3 of these questions, but a lot of them on you. I don't know if I should ask this next question yet. I feel like I need to get you a bit more drunk first. Okay, I'm going to ask it and then let me know if you want to come back to it. So, do you do you have a really awkward first date story for me?
Oh yeah, no, tons. My entire dating life has been that. But I mean, the one that came straight to my head as soon as you said it was, I did it was a favor to a friend, I shall add, but I did one of those like Guardian blind dates, but it wasn't Guardian. It was potentially Attitude or Gay Times, I think I did it for.
Ooh.
My friend at the 11th hour was like, we had this date set up and one of them's pulled out and I really need someone to fill in the place. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Because I knew it was going to be like, it would obviously be like pictures taken and then like a write-up, and it just seems really awkward. And it's a blind date. I don't do blind dates. But because it was a friend, I was like, okay, sure. And the dinner was lovely, but it was really awkward because, you know, we both were there and I think we both didn't really want to be there. I think we both knew we weren't each other's type. So it was just really awkward all around. And then that awkward moment when you leave the restaurant and you kind of walk into the tube station when you could actually do that. And it was kind of like, I want to go, but I don't know how to leave without being rude. And do I give you a handshake? Do I hug you? Do I not do any of those things? So it's just really awkward all around.
Fair. Oh my god, blind dates are the worst. Oh gosh, mine would probably be the kind of the same, a blind date for my uni paper. I didn't want to do it, but I ended up doing it, and then the person texted me afterwards and was like, I just don't think we're a match. And then I ended up going on a date with his ex a few weeks later, so it worked out for me fine.
Messy.
I mean, come on, it's me.
I didn't want to say it, but...
yeah, you can say anything you want to me, honestly. So what is your favorite Little Mix song? I feel like you do like Little Mix, don't you? Because I've seen you tweet about them before.
I could talk about Little Mix all day. If you want to sit and talk about Little Mix for the next hour, I've got like a dissertation I could pull out on this. My favorite song. Ooh. I would maybe go with something like, I think About Us is my favorite Little Mix song, which is an underrated bop from LM5. Love.
Absolutely.
But not the one that has like feature. Like I like the one that's just the girls. So. But honestly, Little Mix song I'm happy with. So
they have one of the best discographies then I've seen for a lot of girl groups. I was listening to a lot of girl groups today. I was listening to All Saints, A Bit of Girls Aloud, you know, just like kind of some throwbacks. But Little Mix, they are just, they've got tunes on every single album. Honestly, I don't know how they did it.
Honestly, I could listen to them. In fact, I do. I listen to them pretty much all day. I've got like a little collection of their songs. I just throw it on shuffle. Great day whenever that happens.
Yeah. Were you heartbroken when you heard about Jessie leaving Little Mix?
No, but not because I was like, oh, she's left, though I didn't like her, but because I just kind of assumed that it was going to happen. So I think I'd kind of like let myself in for it. I was like, it will happen, so prepare.
Yeah. It was a bit, you could see it coming, I guess, but it was still just knowing, it's like, you know, Ginger leaving the Spice Girls. I hope it doesn't affect them too much, but we just don't know.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But I agree as well about the featured songs as well. It's always better when it's just them. So like Touch I feel like it's better when it's just them. Or like, I don't know, actually, maybe Power. I kind of like the one with Storm.
Storms is the only one I make an exception for.
Yeah, I think that one. Or maybe How You Doing with Missy Elliott. I kind of like that version.
An early one, okay.
Oh gosh, yeah. we are talking. What was that, like 9 years ago or something? I don't know. What is the best thing on Netflix right now?
I've been. Oh no, that's not Netflix. I was about to say Married at First Sight, but that's not Netflix. That's Channel 4. Netflix, I did just watch Bridgerton. Wasn't like the biggest fan, but also it has Jonathan Bailey in it, so that makes up for it, I guess. And I was obsessed with The Crown. I watched that a while ago, but I missed seasons 2, 3, and 3, and then joined back in at 4 because I'm obsessed with Princess Diana. Princess Diana documentaries are like the thing that I watch all the time. My friends are probably watching this, being like, "Don't admit that."
No, don't worry about it. You can say whatever you want. We won't judge. Princess Diana was, you know, a legend. So, and still is. She's still a legend. So I don't blame you for that. To be honest, with Netflix, I haven't been watching a lot lately. I've been too busy reading this and, you know, doing this, that, and the other. So yeah, I can't even give any recommendations. So never mind. But I do want to watch Bridgerton just for, you know, just because everyone is.
Yeah, I would say watch the first couple of episodes at least, just so you know what everyone's talking about, but then decide for yourself if it's something you should stick with.
That's good assessment. Do you have a celebrity crush right now? And are you going to say the actor from Bridgerton?
Well, yeah, I did a tweet not too long ago where Jonathan Bailey did an interview with someone and said what his perfect date was, and I think I tweeted something very stupid, which was like a search history of like, he said like, oh, I love exploring and I love going for a pint, and so I was like, how do you drink beer without tasting it? Because I hate beer, it's disgusting. But it was a very lame tweet that people found very funny for some strange reason. So I'll probably say Jonathan Bailey is my current crush.
Fair. I like that answer. Oh, yeah, you know what? I just realized, because we talked a little bit about this before we went live, I know that this could not happen. But just suspend your disbelief for just a second.
Okay.
If you ended up on the Great British Bake Off, which, I mean, it wouldn't happen, maybe a celebrity version, you know, as the novelty act, what would your speciality be?
It'd be something basic like banana bread. I would be like, and I would probably ruin it as well. I made one for the first time last week, and it was like fine, but not a baker. It's because I can never be bothered. Like when I want something, I want it then. So, which is why I hate cooking, because I'm like, oh, I'm hungry now. So, yeah, it was something basic like banana bread, and I'd ruin it. So I would just have to run around making jokes to everybody to try and cheer the episode up or something.
That's what we need. You know what? I do love me some Bake Off, and you know, people are amazing on it. But I love me somebody who isn't perfect on there. Like, they're the people I root for.
I would be like, I was about to say I'd be the lovable one that just kind of rumbles through, but that was a bit like not humble of me to be like, I would be the fan favorite. But no, I'd be the one that everyone's like, how did he get on it? But he's all right, I guess.
Yeah. You get on it because you would light up. You would light it up. I don't want to. There are quite a few. Yay! Applause for Ben. Hi, Ben. Huge congrats, Ben. Huge congrats.
Thank you so much.
Where are you're saying it's not available? I wonder if it's sold out. Where are you ordering from, and are you in the UK? Because I've got links for copies of the book, so if you can't get hold of it, got my copy today. It is stunning. Yes, Tracy. Ali from Hardback Order, she lives in America, and she's been telling the children's librarians about it there.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully they can get it. Yeah. Well, I also want I feel like it will. Like, it's a given. Yeah. Loving the background. The background is illustrated by, is her name Sadia Prabat, or if I pronounce? Yeah. And honestly, the illustrations are just absolutely phenomenal. Oh, I love them so much. So yeah, that is what the background is. So all credit to her and her incredible talents. Is it being published in Germany? Do we know any international dates?
Don't know any information on any of this stuff yet. I'm hoping that the ball gets rolling on that. Like, now it's the other side of publication. Yeah, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks / months.
Yeah. Steph is on an Instagram tour for this book in March. Can't wait to read it. Cannot wait for you to read it.
I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, she will. I know Steph's taste, and she has good taste. She has good taste, to be fair. Hello. Yeah, Brandon. Good, Ben. Gav, getting folks drunk on lives is such a bad influence. I mean, this is what you came for. Oh, another question. What is Rihanna's best era?
Oh, Loud. I mean, I wouldn't say they're the best songs, but it's just like, as an era, like red hair, pastels, like you see red hair, you think Rihanna. So Loud. Well, actually, that might have been too quick off the mark, actually. Rated R was a good one. But we'll go with loud. Nice and
Okay. Okay. We do need some kind of new material, but, you know, we're patient people, Ben. We're patient.
I'm not, but yeah, sure. But I've run out.
And what age range is this book meant for? It's middle grade, or like children, so I would say probably like 8 to 12 or 8 plus, I would say, just 8 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, any age.
As an adult as well. It's
yeah,
hopefully a joy, but I mean 8 plus is
8 plus. 100%. So you should definitely get it for whoever you're buying it for just soon. So excited for your book, my most anticipated middle grade.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yay. In the Netherlands. You might be able to get it on Waterstones ship internationally. So Waterstones you should be all right with. And they do an exclusive edition as well.
They do.
Can't wait for my copy to arrive. I ordered it from Waterstones. Oh, from south of Mexico. Oh my gosh, yes.
We're really going international tonight.
Wait, you are worldwide, baby. Sorry, I went off track there. Oh, if Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow was turned into an animated movie, which you can only pick one, which film studio would you want working on it?
The worst part is that I've had this discussion, not professionally, but like I've had this discussion with friends, and I think I told my agent. I think my agent thinks I've lost my mind, but it's a toss-up probably between Pixar and Illumination. I really like Illumination they did like The Grinch, I think, and they had such stunning animations. But I think I've been waiting for Pixar to they're always the one that kind of like push the boat out first, and everyone else is like, oh, it works, we can go after them now. And we've had Disney put together like the all black cast for Black Panther, for Marvel, and I'm kind of waiting to see if they will jump and do like an LGBTQ plus animation soon, but I guess we'll see. They definitely have got more diverse characters than they've ever had before, but I'm waiting for that. Like they did like a Pixar short, I believe, which was like LGBTQ plus. So I'm like, okay, you dipped your toe. Now how about you talk to me about...
Yes.
Yes. They won't talk to me. I don't work at Pixar, but still.
Yeah, give like the LGBTQ plus community a bit more than just a short film. I would say
more than 9 good.
100%. I also like, for me, I would love it if Leica Studios did it. So Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings, because I would love to see it in that style as well. Like I feel like that would be such a great style. I know they do fantasy and stuff, but I think they would do really well with how they would set out all of that hard work for it. I think it would be amazing. Honestly, we'll take anything.
Yeah, anywhere on a screen when I'm happy. So you do with it, you please, after that.
Yeah. I will fight for that if I have to. What were you like as a 12-year-old?
If people always ask me like if I'm like any of the characters, and so it's easy for me to liken myself to one of the characters, but I was more of a Seb. For those of you that haven't read the book, which I mean it only came out yesterday, so I'm not expecting you to, but I was very much like a rule follower, not a rule breaker. I'm very like, me and my mum are really, really close, and I would never think of doing anything without asking her permission first. And it's not, my mum was never strict, but I kind of knew that my mum was quite lax. So as long as I told her, then she would be like, okay, not happy with you doing this, I'm happy with you doing that, etc. So yeah, rule follower, don't like to be running around breaking the rules and getting detention. I was quite the kid in school whose hand would be up first and doing extra homework and all that business. But I grew out of that when I got to uni. So
you were a little troublemaker when you got to uni. Good to know. And then the last kind of icebreaker kind of question is, name 2 of your all-time favorite books.
Oh wow,
I feel like I know one of them. I feel like I kind of know one of them.
I mean, do you want to say this? Because
can I guess one of them?
Yeah, go for
it. Noughts and Crosses, Mallory Blackman.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. When someone asks you a question, like I think about what I've read recently, which is not the question. I would say Noughts and Crosses, because that was when I was really young. when it first came out, I read that book and it was the book that made me want to be an author. Like it was the first time that I'd read a book and been like, oh, like people write books and they don't just like appear in the shops as if by magic. So yeah, noughts and crosses. And I want to pick one that's like more recent. Probably They Both Die at the End.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's not one of my favorites, but it's the one that's popping into my head at the moment just because I think it's such a good concept. I love Adam Silvera so much. I think his work is great. So yeah, well, They Both Die at the End is a really good book. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I think that was the first LGBTQ plus book that I read, actually, because I stopped reading for such a long time. And I think that was the first one I read quite a few years back now, actually. But from what I recall, I do love the concept, and obviously, like the title of the name gives away the fact that it's going to be quite a heartbreaking story.
Yeah, it feels so rebellious because it's like traditional story writing is like you kind of reveal when someone dies like at the end of a book, and to kind of just in not even like the first page, but the title of the book is like, by the way, these two characters are going to die, just like FYI. Like I just think I'm so rebellious to just be like flip storytelling on its head and be like, yeah, no, I'm telling you now, you can start, but no matter what you think, they're dying. So there's that.
You started kind of thinking, oh, I hope it like changes the outcome, like, or something will be different. It's like watching a movie, knowing your favorite character dies, but you watch it just hoping something will change. But
I really thought that it was like a trick or something, like putting like a red flag or something, like look over here, but actually you should have been looking over there. But no, they did just both die.
Yeah. Well, that was the last of my icebreaker questions. I try to like change it up a little bit, apart from the first one, obviously. But yeah, so now we can talk all about you. So this is like a chance for you to like, don't be modest about anything. Seriously, like you're talking to me here, and so I mean, before you were an author, you were a celebrity journalist as well. So can you tell us a bit about what you did and all of the exciting things that you did before becoming a published author?
Yeah, I still do. Celebrity author is still my full-time day job that I do Monday to Friday.
Keyword celebrity. You are a celebrity. You're part of this. You're part of the celebrity now.
It's kind of like a running joke that we have, like on like we're a team of 3 people, and the running joke is that like, oh, we're going to interview you someday, which is it's funny in theory, but I mean, I start being like, no, you're not. Yeah, no, I've been a celebrity reporter for 4 years now. I got the job straight out of uni, so actually longer than that. But yeah, it's been a ride for those few years. It definitely actually helped me to write the book. I remember when Simon & Schuster, my publisher, asked me like, oh, like, how does it feel writing a story compared to like the day job? And it really helps because like where I work, I write in a very like chatty way, which is very like, oh, if I was coming to tell you what had happened between 2 celebrities or whatever, I'd be like, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened. So that translates itself into the book nicely. But yeah, it's been doing it for a while.
It definitely does, actually, because it does start off, and I feel like you've mentioned this before. I've seen you mention this before, but Archie is quite a really, well, he's a strong protagonist. He's very relatable, and he's very direct to the reader as well. And I feel like that's just such an endearing way of starting this middle grade for a lot of readers, even adults as well, so you can get a glimpse into the way he thinks, the way he speaks. And yeah, I guess being a celebrity journalist for such a long time is something that has lent to the story. You can really feel that in Archie, I think.
Yeah. Archie's voice was more born out of me being grumpy. I was really sulky that day when I came up with the opening paragraph that you read now, which is the opening to the book. I was sulking so hard that day. Nothing was working. I was sat in a cafe. I think it was the first time that I decided to switch from a Waterstones cafe, and I was in like a furniture shop cafe somewhere. And it wasn't working. I remember looking at my laptop and being like, what are you doing? Like, where is this? I'd already been in contact with my agent at this point, and she'd kind of been like, you know, when you've got a first draft, let me know. And I was like, you're ruining the opportunity to be like represented officially because you can't do it. I was so annoyed that day. And so really grumpily, I kind of like Hulk smashed my keyboard and was like, So you're in the bookshop reading this, right? And it was really aimed at me. I was being really grumpy with myself and being like sarcastic, like, oh yeah, your book's in a bookshop, is it? And then afterwards I looked back and was like, oh, actually that doesn't sound too bad. Let me carry on and see what happens. So Archie's voice came out of that.
Wow. So you were told that you can't do it?
Oh, I was telling myself. I was just so annoyed with myself because I was looking at what I had. I think I had maybe 25,000 words at that point. And I remember remember reading it back to myself and being like, I'm bored. I was like, this is it was really flat. And I think most of my ideas start off when I write them quite flat, like the first draft gets, or like draft 0, as I would probably call it, is quite flat, and I go back through and I leave it for a while. I go back to it with better ideas, and then it fleshes out from there and it grows into something nice. But that day I was so annoyed because I didn't have Archie's voice. I didn't know how I was telling the story, and then suddenly I was like, maybe we tell it directly through Archie in this really like fourth wall-esque type way, and it seems to have worked. So
yeah, it has. But that's the hard thing as well, because you hadn't done, something like this to this scale beforehand. I did read that you have always wanted to be a published author though. So can you so that was like a childhood dream growing up, and it's always something you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was always a reader, and as soon as I realized that people wrote books, I wanted to be a writer. I was always the kid in school who would like create stories. Like English and creative writing was really easy for me. And everyone kind of knew, like in school, it was like my thing. Like, oh, Ben, of course, writes stories. And then when I went to uni, I remember I did English and creative writing at Manchester. And I remember the first seminar and looking around the room and being like, oh, I'm not the only one who writes stories anymore. Literally everyone in this room now writes stories, and it's not special that I write them anymore. And I think that kind of took the shine off it a little bit for me at the time. And when I graduated, I didn't write up until I started this book. I started this book as a way to get back into writing, because being an author is what I always wanted to do. But yeah, I hadn't written anything in a long time until I started this book, because I didn't think I could. I thought I'd kind of run out of steam and maybe I'd lost my touch. But
no,
published books, I mean, it can't have been that bad.
Exactly. It's that self-doubt, I think, before you get any kind of sort of validation from being a published author. I guess there's always that will you, won't you kind of deal, which is like my next question is like getting to that point then of becoming a published author. How was your publishing journey? Because if you did have those doubts and you had moments where you were like, oh, you can't do this, then you must have pushed yourself through that.
Yeah, I think it's the same with, I mean, I'm writing my second book now, but I think it's probably the same and will be the same for like all of my writing projects going forward, where I think I tried to explain to a friend, like at the very beginning of writing something, you're really excited. Like the first 20-30% of the entire manuscript, you're like, oh my God, this idea is the best idea. It's going to be a bestseller. I'm going to be rich. It's going to be great. It'll be a movie. I'm going to win an Oscar. And you start thinking like, this is the best idea ever. And then you hit like this, I call it like the 30-70 slump, which is like, or maybe it's like 40-70, depending on how excited you are about the idea. But somewhere in the middle, like between 40 and 70%, you start to be like, is it a good idea? And you still like the doubts start creeping in, because you're quite a way in at this point. You've got a fair chunk of the book done. You've got like the first 30% done, and you start thinking, can I do this? Am I the right person to write this book? Am I going the right way? Should my characters be going this way? Should the plot be going that way? And I think doubt starts to creep in around about the very, very middle. And if you can push through that and get to like 70-80% of the manuscript done, then you start to see the finish line and you're like, oh, we're almost done. And you start writing all over again because you're really excited that the finish is in sight. But that middle bit is so tough. So when I was writing End of the Rainbow, I think at one point I had a 30,000 word draft and I scrapped it. And I was so devastated that day. I was so mad at myself, because I was like, you just had half of the book and you just got rid of it because you didn't think it was very good. And I think writing is really solitary unless you write like a collab. Like last week you spoke to Maya and Sam. And so I would be interested to know, like, talking to them more in depth about like their experience, because maybe bouncing off each other works better. But for me personally, when you write on your own, which is what most people do, you kind of start being like, no, I shouldn't do this. This is bad. And then you start questioning yourself and it all goes out the window. But if you can push through that, you great guns.
You're fine. So between 12 and 4, should I send you reminders like, oh, you're such a good author. Like, honestly, what you write is gold. Kiara's your Oscar, you know? It's like, is that what you need?
Around 12 and 4 is when you want to start messaging. Around maybe 11. Get me like
11.
Before I go into 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
For you to get you in the right mindset. You did mention April before, so it was a really quick publishing thing. So did you submit your manuscript and it was like instantly a favorite among the office?
It was really, I mean, the whole thing has been so quick, and I always preface this by saying I am very, very aware. I'm so fortunate. Like, it's been so quick and easy, dare I say it. I hate saying that because I know how much people struggle to get their foot in the door. Like, I'm always hold my hands up. I got a shortcut with getting an agent, which I did. It's not because I knew her or anything. I entered a short story competition beforehand and I didn't win, but someone at the short story competition got in touch with my first agent, Alice, and was like, oh, this person might have something you're interested in, because Alice was building her client list at the time. So Alice approached me and was like, hi, I'm an agent. Would you be interested in turning this short story into a full book? I'm very aware that happens pretty rarely to people who haven't written books before. But I would say I was officially, that was back in 2018, and I didn't get official representation until I finished the first draft at the beginning of 2020, and Alice officially started representing me in January 2020. So, I mean, considering I know so many authors who sign deals and then are waiting 2 years, 3 years to get published. Publishing is so slow. It really is. Like, I saw someone announce a deal not too long ago, and their book is being published like winter 2023. And I was like, I would lose my mind. But I am very, very, very fortunate. Like, I don't want to necessarily like diminish the hard work that I put into writing the book, but I'm also very aware that I'm very lucky because, when it went out for submission, I think it was 2 days, maybe less, before Simon & Schuster rolled in and were like, we want it. It kind of, there was a lot of buzz going on. A couple of other, I think everyone we sent it out to was interested, at least. There weren't necessarily formal offers, but they were interested. And I was very like shocked because I've been expecting to wait 3 months, 2 months. I was like, I don't know how long this bit lasts. I was like, submission could be ages. I don't know how long that lasts. So I'd kind of been expecting to sit tight for a couple of weeks at least. And for it to have been days before, I think I'd made my decision after less than a week. It had been out for submission, and I think less than a week had gone by, and I said, yeah, I want to take that deal with Simon & Schuster. But I will, any writers that are watching now and being like, oh, he had an easy ride, which I did for the UK, but I will then counterbalance and say that like my experience in like the States, for example, complete opposite. Like, we're still out on submission in the States. And yeah, I got humbled very, very quickly over there. I got my first handful of rejections and was like, oh, wow.
Really?
I haven't experienced this yet. This is so yeah, I've seen both sides. But I'm very, very lucky with the process in the UK. Very, very easy for me, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to say that.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like you have worked really hard for it. Like, it really reflects in the book. And I think the book itself, one of the reasons why it probably was rather quick to come out is because there aren't a lot of books like it at all. And I feel like a lot of people need it right now. Not even just right now, but we needed a book like this years ago, you know? And I mentioned this in a review as well. Like, this is, and a lot of people do actually. I've read a lot of reviews and they've said, this is the kind of book I wish I could have given to my younger self. And I feel like that is one of the main giveaways for this book, is that people are really taken to it, and how much of an effect it could have on, you know, young minds who are growing up a bit confused about things that they're not, you know, shown in other books or in media for kids. So I definitely feel like that's probably partly the reason, is that you've wrote something that is just so relevant and so needed, and it really shows like how talented it is through the writing, that it is actually already making a difference to a lot of people. And that is why, so like, yeah, don't diminish your hard work for this. You have worked tooth and nail to get this book out. So, you know,
once I got through the writing part was a tough bit, but I will admit, once the manuscript was finished, it flew from there. So I was very happy to see that, because people always ask, like, since there's not much like in the market to compare it to, which is a shame. Like, I wish there was. Like, some people are like, oh, do you feel like happy because like it's almost like quote unquote no competition? I try not to kind of be in that headspace anyway. There are so many fantastic writers and authors, and I've been welcomed into the like author club with open arms by so many authors, and it's been unreal. Some authors that I've looked up to and read their books for so long have been like, yeah, come here, like you're one of us. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But yeah, once I managed to get the manuscript finished, then I was very lucky from there. So
good. I was going to actually say, are you now part of the fold? Like, so I know that there are a lot of children's authors who, you know, they're so accepting and they're so open and just so genuinely lovely. I was wondering, like, were they, I mean, you weren't published at that time, but like, say, like when you were starting to get the word of the book out, were a lot of authors really supportive of that you were an upcoming debut? Because I feel like now as well, with it being 2020 and 2021, all debut authors have probably had a really hard time. Or not probably, they have had a hard time. So were you, you know, given that kind of same kind of welcoming from a lot of children's authors the past year, even before you were published?
I mean, absolutely. So many of them kind of popped up. I wouldn't say while I was on, or when I was on submission, it was maybe a little more difficult because nobody knew that the book was a thing at that point. But when it was announced in summer, maybe, I think the book deal was official. I'd accepted the book deal in maybe April. But I think the book deal was officially announced in June, I believe. When that happened, it was kind of like authors started to appear and be like, oh, congratulations, like, well done. And then obviously as the months rolled by and we got closer to when I revealed the cover and when we revealed the title and when I did the bookseller, I mean, it was nuts to me that I honestly don't know how I ended up on the cover of that. Just, I remember looking at it and being like, why are you there? But yeah, no, authors.
I was going to say the bookseller is like Vogue for book nerds, kind of, isn't it? It's like, that is definitely...
The worst part is I don't have a copy. I gave my copies to like my mum, my gran, because I know that that's the kind of thing that they will like love and be like, oh, look, he's on the magazine cover. And I was like, okay, I don't really need to make like wallpaper of a magazine cover that I'm on. Like it's fine.
Really?
Well, I mean, maybe I will with the next one. But
yeah, the next one, exactly. Look forward to the next one because it will happen again. But if we can go on eBay or something, see if anybody's selling it, you know, just try and get an extra copy or something.
But they were all like, I'm in various like author groups. Like they tend to kind of like, I'm in like a debut authors group, which has been a massive help. Like some of them are maybe watching now, but a huge help because we're all debuting this year. So it's all debut authors that debut in 2021. And it's so good to have a support system of people who know what you're talking about. Because I can talk to my friends and be like, this is happening, but there's only so much that they can understand without being in the situation themselves. Because sometimes like, I don't know what's going on. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to explain this to you. But there's something good about being able to explain it to someone who is also going through the same thing. But yeah, authors have been unreal. I'm glad to call some of them friends now, which is lovely.
Oh, I love it. I honestly love middle grade authors the most. It's why I like I like to pester so many of them online because I just know they're just lovely. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's all incredible, and I absolutely do still love the fact that you have been like, especially during these times as well. I mean, it has been tough, but you've still been tackling it well. You've still been looking ahead, rather than what's going on around you. I feel anyway. I mean, you could be putting on a good front, but I feel like you've done so well in the fact that you know, all the success and stuff on Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow has been probably not at the best time, but it's still happening and it's still incredible. So yeah, I feel like
very, very strange, especially because my entire experience has been pretty much in the pandemic. Like I went out on submission. We were in lockdown when we did submission the first time. So yeah, my entire experience has been in lockdown. So to me, all the authors that I am now friends with and talk to, I have no clue what they're talking about when they're like, yeah, do you remember when we used to be able to like do book tours and book signings? And I'm like, no, I've only ever known the four walls of my flat when it comes to being an author.
Fair, but I mean, now I would definitely absolutely love in the future when we can do school visits again. If we can have you up in the north, that would be awesome. But yeah, I feel like it's still going to have opened so many doors for you now that you can, when lockdown's lifted and everything's back to normal, you will have this huge future to do everything you need to do as an author. So I feel really positive about that. If anybody in the chat has any comments, do let me know. But we won't spoil anything about Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow, but we will be talking about it a little bit now. I can't wait because I absolutely love this book. Can you tell people who are tuning in, if they haven't read it yet, what Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow is about?
Yeah, it's all about 12-year-old Archie Albright, who's we've heard about a bit already. I've already spoken about him, but he's our main character, and he knows that his parents really don't like each other. They're really not getting on at the moment. They've recently separated. He doesn't know why, and he knows they're keeping a secret from him, and he wants to know what that secret is. I think everybody probably knows what the secret is because it's the whole premise of the book. So yeah. I do usually just say that like the secret is that like Dad's gay, but I think everybody knows that. So although it's classed as like this big secret in the book, it's obviously the main point of the book, and everybody already knows it. So it's fine. And then when he does find that out, it's all about what him and his best friends Belle and Seb can do to kind of understand better and make things better at home, because everybody's descended into awkwardness and no communication between anybody, and Archie just wants everything to be like it was before. So he goes on a grand adventure to a place that you can probably guess by the background that we've got here and the cover art that we've got. But yeah, I mean, especially a year when I couldn't go to Pride, I wrote that I was probably editing those scenes when Pride should have been happening last year, and obviously it didn't. And it felt kind of like as close as I could be to being at Pride last year. So I was kind of hoping I'd be able to go to Pride this year, but I'm not sure it's looking very promising at the moment. But
maybe not, but it will happen again. Like it's not over forever. Like that's the thing. Like things are getting cancelled, but I'm like very sad about a lot of events. But I'm always like, I need to like stay positive. I need to make sure that I don't have that mindset where it's over forever. It will come back. I feel like it definitely will come back. We will be out there on the parades. We will be on the floats, Ben, me and you, Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow with this, you know, like, hey.
Waving, throwing free copies out all over the shop.
Exactly. I mean, you have 20 copies of it, so you can spare a couple for the crowd.
Need to knock down that. It looks very self-indulgent.
Nah, I love it. Keep it. I want to just quickly highlight this as well. The Good Ship 2021 debut group rocks. Love watching you shine.
That's my debut author group. Hi, Annalise. It's been like the biggest help having them like on side, and also to be able to cheer each other on, to be able to be like, right, your book release is coming up now, and yeah, I've never had more support than from those guys. So, and there's a lot of this as well. There's quite a lot of good shippers. So
that's good. And I love Annalise as well. Can't wait to read The Night Silver Promise. Oh, just looking at some comments now as well. What variety of LGBT characters are there throughout the book?
I try to be as inclusive as possible. Obviously, you're kind of treading that line of wanting to include as many characters as you want while also not distracting from what the actual story is, because it's a kid's book and you're trying to be, it's almost like you're streamlining things. But especially when we get to the later stages of the book, when they do end up at Pride, which is obviously the next part of the book. I'm just probably spoiling for you all, but I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. Yeah, they meet a whole host of characters. They drag queens and basically everybody you would think of meeting at Pride. I wanted to show families in as many different lights as I could, and I think yesterday I had my virtual launch and I did a reading there, and I chose to read the section when they're researching Pride and they see like pictures of Pride happening. And that was a really good opportunity for me to kind of do almost like what would be like a montage if it was a movie, of being like the kinds of families you get, whether it be two mums, one dad, different generation families, grandparents and parents and kids, and adopted kids. So you're honestly going to get a whole array of characters, especially in the second half of the book. One of which will maybe appear in book 2. Who knows?
Ooh. oh, that's really interesting.
I bring one character from End of the Rainbow into book 2, but it's not a sequel, so don't think it's a sequel. But I'm bringing that character.
But that is still exclusive information. That is hot news right now. I did not know this before. I don't know if you have told anyone else, to be honest. I'm just pretending this is the first time everyone said.
I'm quite a blabbermouth, so maybe I have, but yeah, no, it's definitely. I might not have, but I'm such a blabbermouth that I probably have at some point. But yeah, I would drag one character into the next book.
Oh, that's so cool. How did like why this story? Why about a boy finding out that his dad is gay? Like, what was the genesis of this story?
It's all of my ideas come to me kind of like, it sounds really like I'm speaking, I'm like bowing to crystals or something. It's not like that at all. But like, I do say that all of my ideas come to me kind of like as a strike of lightning. Like it always happens when I'm in bed, because that's the only time that I'm switched off. Like I'm not looking at my phone. So when I'm trying to fall asleep, my brain is thinking about all kinds of things. And an idea for a story always just appears. This one, in hindsight, is based off a whole bunch of people that I've met in my life over the last like decade and more, people who came out later in life. I remember when I was maybe 17, I believe, I think I met someone who was a little older than I was and had only just come out. And I remember being like, I came out at 15 and I didn't have any other gay friends to be able to compare experiences to. So in my head, everybody just came out when they were teenagers. And meeting someone who came out like in their 30s, I was like, I'm so intrigued by this. Like, how does this happen? So I've met many people like that over the years, because obviously quite a lot of people come out later on. Nowhere near everyone comes out when they're teenagers. So I think I was on the tube and I got like the brain wave of like, married dad comes out as gay. Like that was it. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do with that? And as with all of the ideas, I drop it in my notes app. And if it's an idea that I'm going to end up writing, more ideas will keep coming. I'll keep adding to that notes app. But I left it. It was in my notes app for a while. And then the short story competition came around and I completely, for want of a better word, I completely ballsed it up. I really did. I didn't read the brief. And when I went back to read the brief, I realized I'd written a kind of like crime thriller for something that was meant to be about Pride. I remember reading the brief being like, how have I done this? I was like, I read the email, how have I done this? So it was like the 11th hour. I had like 2 days, I think, to pull together a 5,000 word short story. And I went through my notes app, saw that one and was like, I can make something out of that. And there's an argument that happens in chapter 6, maybe, chapter 7, which is like the grander argument that reveals a secret. And that was actually the very first thing that I wrote in the iteration that was the short story. That was the opening to the short story.
Nice. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. That's pretty interesting, actually. But also, getting back to this crime thriller, will we see this at some point?
The idea's there, but it's not. It's like such a vague concept, and I'm like, I'm not a crime writer. I don't know why I was going down that road for, but I was so intrigued by the concept, and I think it's maybe one that will like reveal itself to me over the next few years. But it's definitely not something you're going to see anytime soon. If you see it in like a decade or so, when I more.
Cool. I mean, I'm excited to see everything now in the future. So what was it like to actually sit down and physically start like writing this book? Like, how did you, so you had the idea, you did the short story, and that was like the first, did you just start from scratch again, or did you like keep that? Or like, I mean, as you said, you were angry, you were, you know, telling yourself you couldn't do this. Yeah, you were angry with yourself, but was it kind of like a whole different kind of experience from like actually like being able to sit down and just like start and then think, oh, this is actually a book, this is what I want to publish, this is the thing?
It wouldn't have been what it is without my first agent. I was originally signed with my agent Alice, and at the time the short story competition was the short story that I'd written was YA. Archie was actually called Charlie, and Charlie was 17, and it looked, the bare bolts like of what the book is now was still there, but it was Alice's idea to, she came to me, she was like, I'm a middle grade agent pretty much, I'm wondering if you would like age that down and make Charlie, who then became Archie, make Archie around about like 12. And I remember turning to my friend and saying, I don't want to do that. I hadn't anticipated writing for children at all. It hadn't even crossed my mind. But it's funny in hindsight because my natural writing style does lean into that very chatty, informal style that you see more in middle grade than anywhere else. But when I finally sat down to start writing it, it's annoying because it should have been much quicker. It was the first time I'd ever written anything in full. I'm so bad for writing the first 2 chapters, 3 chapters, then I get an idea for something else, so I put that aside and start working on something else, and I never get more than 10,000 words done. So this was the first time that I ever was like, okay, you actually need to write like 60,000 words here. And in the short story, Pride as an event was there. But for some reason, when I adapted it into a full book, I got rid of Pride. And I didn't do it on purpose. But I was like, how am I going to make this a full story? Okay, this happens. And Pride wasn't included at all. And it was at the point when I realized, oh, this entire thing is so flat. How can I liven it up? But I was like, wait a minute. The original story had Pride in it. Why did you take that out? So I kind of went back and was like, what were you doing? Like, what did you read what you originally wrote? So once I introduced Pride into the story again, it injected it with that like livelihood that it needed. So once I had that, we were great guns. Once that and Belle came into the picture, because Belle wasn't always there. Belle is my favorite character, but she fell onto the page really late. I originally had Archie having a twin sister. It was originally him and a twin sister called Belle. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm confusing it. I want Archie to be an only child because I want him to be, it sounds mean, but I wanted him to have nobody to talk to. Like I wanted him to have friends, and I wanted him to have his babysitter, Oscar, and his next door neighbor, who he could go to talk about these things. But the whole idea is that everything is so awkward in this house because nobody's talking to each other, and how it feels to feel like alone in that and be like alone with your thoughts. And I knew straight away, I was like, Archie has to be an only child. He can't have a sibling. So I was like, what am I doing with Belle? So I was like, right, we'll make Belle a friend. I made her a minor character, and then she was nothing like she is now. She was a clever clogs and a very like books, like a book nerd like I am. And I changed her at the very last minute, and I was like, no, you're going to be like the adventurer. You're going to be the one that kind of spearheads the adventure and rallies them up to be like, come on, we can go do this. And has that really like dry, sarcastic sense of humor that I love. It's like one of my best friends, Ellen, who cracks me up all the time. So once Belle and Pride came into it, then I was flying. Up until then, it took me a year and a half to find those two things, but once I had those things, great.
Excellent. I mean, it's a beautiful like love story of this book, is that it was saved by, you know, one of the biggest, you know, celebrations in the world that does inject everyone's life with color, and a character who is just so supportive of, you know, every one of her best friends. She like has everybody's best interest at heart. She is really fun. She's amazing. I love her. I was going to ask who's your favorite character, but it's Belle, obviously. Same. But I guess there is a part of everyone, all of the characters, a part of you in all of the characters, because as you said, as a 12-year-old, you were quite a worrier. Which I feel like Seb. Oh my gosh! Like what happened? Like I'll not say what happens to Seb, but what happens to Seb is just like.
Oh, that was really cruel of me. It really was. I felt so mean because I was like, I know my characters aren't like real people. Like I know Seb, Archie, and Belle are just figments of my imagination, and they don't really exist. But obviously, when you're working like on the story for so long, you start thinking, not caring about them in terms of like, oh no, I hope they're okay, because I know they're not real. But as the story was progressing, and what happens to Seb, which I won't say, but what happens to Seb came out of nowhere. I'm not great at planning. I dislike planning so much because I feel like I plan too much to avoid writing. So I just find that I have to dive into it and see where the story takes me. And at the bit with what happens to Seb, it got to the end of the previous chapter, and I was just suddenly like, oh no, oh no.
What have you done?
I was like, I realized what I'm going to do here. So I went back and I deleted like 2 sentences and added 2 different sentences, and that's therefore what happens to Seb. And I felt so mean because I was like, oh, I've had that happen to me before, and I was like, remember how traumatic it felt at the time, and I was like, oh no, what have you done? No, everyone here thinks I've like killed off Seb. I haven't.
Yeah,
he's alive and well, but
yeah. No, yeah, this is not a really dramatic, like not in that way, definitely not in that way. So if anyone's worried about going into it, please don't worry.
It's not like traumatic in the sense that you're going to be like, how could you? But when you read it, you will understand what I mean, because Seb is such a worrier, and for anything like that to happen to someone who's a worrier like I was as a kid, awful.
Yeah. But the payoff is so great in that though. So like, don't worry. I'll not say what is, but honestly, the payoff. Like honestly, the last. It's amazing, and I want to jump into some viewer comments actually before I carry on as well. I recently came out as lesbian late last year, and I'm really excited to read a middle grade, including a whole series of people from my community. The book I needed when I came out. Yes. Yeah, congratulations. Like honestly,
stories. I love it so much. Makes me so happy.
Same. I love the Marsha P. Johnson quote that you put in.
Yeah, it was at a point where I was realizing, I think I'd heard at the time, I hear it quite often, you know, Pride's not a party, it's a protest. And that's something that gets lost quite a lot, especially now. We do go to Pride and have a great time and we celebrate each other, but I think a lot of people forget that we're still there protesting for the rights that not everybody still has now. And I thought it was important to, I couldn't decide if it was cliche when I was doing it, I was like, should I do this? And I was like, you know what, I don't care, I'm doing it because it's true. And Sanja made me a lovely illustrated flyer for that. So yeah, I felt very happy.
Yeah, I mean, and cliche or not, it's a lot of kids will now be asking questions about it, you know, when they read it. So it will allow people to learn about how incredible Marsha P. Johnson was anyway. And just like learning more about the community in general, I feel. So cliche or not, I don't care. Hire it all in. Hire it all in. Oh, sorry, this chat jumped there. The book is currently my next read, and I am so excited, even more so good. I'm so glad. Please. Yes, please read it. I also cannot wait for my 9-year-old niece to read it, especially as she currently has a girlfriend and is exploring her identity. Oh, that's so cute.
Cute.
I love that. I love that. Mood. My notes app is filled with work in progress ideas.
My notes app is filled with mess. I should just put that in there. There's like 3 good ideas in there, but there's about 150 notes, which are just like dream state waffling of me being like, that was a fantastic bestseller. And then I wake up in the morning like, no, it's not. That's awful. But I'm sure your notes app is fantastic.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to tell you something I had in my notes app that I had to delete after the live. It's again NSFW, but it's hilarious, I think. Charlie was worried about Seb, but it was brilliant.
That's I was worried about him as well because I didn't know what I was going to do to make everything better. I'm trying to walk around my spoiler, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. I'm so sorry to put you in this position. Not.
Not sorry.
Nah, I'm never sorry for anything. Family then is like one of the biggest parts of this book, and one of the reasons why I love it so much as well is the whole family aspect of it. And as you said, like Archie is an only child, but he does have both of his parents, which honestly is quite a rarity in middle grade these days as well.
He didn't at the very beginning.
Did he not?
At the very beginning, I don't think I've ever said this before. This is an exclusive. At the very beginning, I killed off the mum character. I have no idea why. I think it was before I'd realized where I was going, and I was testing out different variations of the book to see what worked. And I thought that I thought pretty much that the book had to just be Archie and Dad, because I was like, the whole book is like the relationship between father and son, and everything else is a distraction from that. So very stupidly, I kind of got rid of everybody else and created this whole backstory that like Archie's mum had died years before, and like Dad had come out years later, like being like, I know who I am now, and blah blah blah. But yeah, he didn't have both parents for a very brief amount of time, for like a month. I was like, yeah, no, he doesn't have a mum, and I was like, no, he does.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's quite hard to imagine it without Archie's mum now as well.
But only there now because of Elton John. That sounds so funny to say. Not Elton John didn't like call me up and be like, "Yeah, you should create a mum character." But I went to go see Rocket Man. I went to a screening of Rocket Man when it first came out, and the mum character, like Elton's mum, who's played by Bryce Dallas Howard. She's such a like wine mum, like such a like always a glass of wine in her hand. She's very like over dramatic, and I found her so funny. And I was like, I was like, I need to bring a mum character into this, and she has to be exactly like this because that is so funny. So the very, very beginning, mostly, mum is very over the top dramatic. She used to be an actress back in the day, and she's very, very over the top. But yeah, mum's one of my favorite characters, and named after one of my favorite Disney movies.
Oh, same. I absolutely love. And you have an incredible mum yourself as well. Was she part of the inspiration as well with the book?
Yes, and I would say yes and no. The tender moments between mum and Archie are inspired by my own mum. My mum is very like very affectionate and very loving, and she's the best mum I could ever ask for. So the tender moments between when mum's in the stories not being like over the top and dramatic are based off my own mum. Everything else is just made up.
Okay.
My mum will love me saying that because she thinks that everyone thinks that that's her.
Yeah, I do love it a bit, and your mum seems like absolutely incredible. So the scenes at Pride then, towards the end of the book, are they are colourful, and I feel like it's so important in middle grade for that to be such a huge important presence in the book. And just getting like, because you do hear certain stories as well from loads of different people that you meet there as well. So how did you go about, because as you said, Pride was cancelled, but I guess when you wrote the book, it would have been the 2019 Pride would have been the last one you went to?
Yeah, I was writing, with Pride 2019, sorry, I just had like a mind blank there where I was like, what are you trying to say? Pride 2019 was the last one that I went to, obviously, and that was the last piece of it. I knew Pride was going to be in the story at that point, and I used that. I think I was at London Pride on the Saturday, and I remember one of my best friends who's potentially here, potentially not, I don't know. But his friends arrived with, it was like his best friend and her husband and their newborn baby arrived. And I remember looking at them and being like, oh, that's so cute. Like, you just decided to bring your newborn baby like to Pride, and you don't have to because you know you're a straight couple, but you've decided that'd be a nice day out. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cute. And that started me thinking about the whole family aspect of Pride and how it's not just, you know, groups of people going out and having a big party in the street. There are so many families that go to Pride together and have a lovely family, wholesome day out. And so that inspired Pride for this book. But yeah, when I was writing it, it was 2020, and when I was writing it properly and editing it properly, it's 2020, and I had to go and like Google pictures and go back to my Instagram and be like, oh, remember when we could do things like this, because we can't do them now. So
yeah, that's true. But I guess it is a hugely important part of the book, I feel, just to see loads of different kinds of people and different kinds of representation. And I remember you saying that when you were younger, you didn't see yourself reflected in the books that you read or the TV shows you watched, the movies you watched, really. But mainly, I would say children's fiction. It was very lacking of like LGBTQ plus. And even, you know, having any kind of diversity, whether that's to do with race, sexuality, it's just been so barren. Well, from my perspective anyway, back in the day, it was very barren. So what does like representation in middle grade specifically mean to you? And how does it feel to write something that has a positive representation that kids from all over the world, eventually when we get these rights in America, when all those kids read it, like, what does that mean to you?
It's been so overwhelming. I think I've had something I wasn't prepared for were good reviews. Like, I'm not saying that I thought the book was bad and I thought people were going to slate it, but I hadn't really anticipated how I'd feel reading good reviews. Like, I don't really search out reviews anymore. Like, that was something I did when the ARCs went out a couple of months ago. But I've obviously, as the book's come out now, more people are messaging me and emailing me and saying how much they love the book. And, you know, that's absolutely great. That's what I want. But seeing people, especially people who are older, say this is the book I needed when I was a kid, because that's exactly how I felt. I didn't anticipate how overwhelming that was going to be, because it reminded me that, you know, when I was a kid, I felt like an alien because I couldn't see myself on screen, in books, in magazines, in newspapers. I wasn't anywhere. And especially as, you know, a Black gay man, you know, that's two minority communities that I'm a part of that I'm only really just now starting to see the representation and diversity across the board. And it still is a sore point, because I do believe sometimes that it's kind of used just for money and like a shtick type thing. Like, I'm thinking more of movies where it's like, you always kind of feel like they're just trying to tick off like the token Black character, the token gay character or lesbian character, and they just want to make people happy by having one character in there without actually a whole story about it. So yeah, it's lovely to be able to give something to kids that I didn't have. Because I mean, I wish I could have read a book. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I wish I could have read my book when I was like 10. But like, I do wish that I had. Well, yeah, I do wish that I had books when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. Because people escape into books as their form of just kind of seeing themselves. And I think it's such, I'm not going to go into the politics of this too much or at all. But I mean, that's why people absolutely loved Harry Potter, and why people are so heartbroken now, because that fandom's kind of been taken away from them, and not through one. You know, you kind of like, oh, this is something that I used to read to escape into, thinking I could see myself in some characters. I mean, I couldn't. I never read Harry Potter and was like, oh, look, there's me. But I understand what people did. And, you know, for that to kind of be lost in this debate over human rights is really gross and horrible. But yeah, I didn't mean to go political, but I do wish that I had the books when I was a teenager, because I read about like white people falling in love, like white teenagers who fell in love, boy and girl, and that is not me. Like, I'm not white, I'm not straight, so where am I looking for me? So it's good now. It's much better now, seeing the diversity kind of come more in stores and books and movies, but a long way to go, I'd say. But we're getting there, so things.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of my problems are my love life problems are probably from all of those white straight couples that I kept reading about, holding up people to a totally different standard to what's actually real to me. So just like not seeing any of that as a kid was just, you know, like you kind of when you're growing up, it is a bit of a solitary kind of experience sometimes, because sometimes you can't really talk to people about things that you're going through.
Yeah.
So again, just to have a book like this that kids can read, and I know that the book is about the dad coming out as gay, but it opens up that conversation though. So even though the main character Archie, he doesn't. This isn't his experience as a gay kid or anything like that. That's not what this book is. But I do still feel like just seeing that talked about and seeing how much of it is a huge focal point of this book is just so important. But we also, again, we have Oscar and we have like loads of different other characters from Pride. There's just so much there. So before we get to like the final few questions, because I feel like the illustrations are like a huge important part of this as well, because as we see with the background of this interview or like this image here, it's like it is so colorful, and it is illustrated by Sandhya Prabhat. And just like, what was your experience working? Like, did you get to work with her? Did you get to see the illustrations? Did you get to have any kind of input in any of that?
I'm quite a, I don't want to say like I'm a yes man, but like I'm very like, this is not my department. Like I can't draw stick man. So the one thing I was worried about was if I don't like the cover, I don't know how I'm going to express why I don't like the cover and what I want to change, because I'm not an illustrator. So I knew that like the design team at Simon & Schuster were cooking something up. Like it was nothing to do with me, and I was happy with that. I started to get a bit anxious when I knew things were going to start coming in about the cover. I saw reference points, so I saw what they wanted to do, and I was happy with it. I saw a very, very, very early sketch of what the cover is now, and I was happy with that as well. I was like, okay, I can see where we're going. But the day I saw what the cover is now, unbelievable. So, relief for one. Like obviously, one look at Sanji's Instagram, and you will know that I was in safe hands. Her illustrations are incredible. She is an absolute wizard with her pen. She's fantastic. But I was still a little bit anxious, like, what if I don't like it? I was really, really anxious about it. But when I saw it, first relief and then just complete elation. Like I was like, I've lucked out. The fact that I kind of get like the double cover, like I've got the original like white cover with the cutouts, and then behind that is the second cover with the Pride scene that you see now. Wow. I mean, I'm so lucky that I got that experience and that it was all plain sailing. I'm very, very, very lucky.
Oh my gosh, the arcs as well. Seriously, when that came through, I was like, what? This is extra. This is extra.
Yeah, the arcs are really, I was so fortunate with the arcs. Because arcs are always like, you know, it's the cover, but it's really, really pared back. So it's always looks a bit simple usually. Although having said that, I've seen a lot of arcs recently where I've been like, wow, design teams are really pulling out the bag. But the slipcase version of the arc that you just have there is unbelievable. Like for a while, I wanted that to be like the actual book, but I'm glad we have what the book is now. But I obviously have both copies, and I'm very happy to have them side by side. So
yeah, oh my god, I feel lucky to have it. Seriously, I felt like I was the envy of everyone when I got it, and I was like, I love this.
I do think there were only like 100 copies of it. So yeah,
limited, nice. Well, I'm a limited kind of person. I'm a limited kind of gal. Matthew said, shout out to Sophie, Elodie, and Matt, Pride Inspiration.
Yeah, they were the couple that came with their baby to Pride, and I was like, wow. Oh, to Pride. So yeah, Sophie and Dean, lovely people.
Oh, I like that. Can't wait to have kiddos one day and give them such wonderful and colourful books to read. Uncle Gav must give Rex. Uncle, I feel like I'm everyone's uncle at the minute, honestly. But yeah, so I guess I'll kind of almost wrap this up, because I genuinely want to know if you can give us any kind of exclusive again about what you're working on? I mean, we got the character from Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow,
Yeah.
but like, is it still going to be middle grade? Is it still going to have the same kind of themes? What can you tell us about what you're working on?
Oh, am I going to get in trouble? I mean,
No,
no
you're
one can
not.
stop me now. So I mean, my publicist might be watching, being like, Ben. It's still middle grade. It's not. It's definitely not a sequel to End of the Rainbow, but they do share similar themes. I've been using this kind of tagline to explain to friends that I don't want to give the full concept to, but I will say it again. I'm just kind of like wheeling that out. If my first book is all about finding the end of the rainbow, then my second book is all about finding the beginning, and it's something that I'm really, really excited about. I've just broken through the like slump period where you're like, oh, what am I doing? This is awful, and I'm back to being like, this is, well, I don't want to say it's great because I don't want to sound like I'm very self-obsessed. I really, really, really love the characters that I'm seeing in the book. I just came up with a new quote unquote villain. I think villain's maybe like the wrong word, but I guess she is a villain. There's not obviously a villain in End of the Rainbow, but I wanted some kind of like almost like opposition in book 2. That's kind of like the obstacle that we've got to run around, and creating her as a villain has been so much fun. Like if you think of like campy like Disney villain-esque, like very Maleficent / evil queen, but with no magic powers. Yeah,
I live.
I'm thinking like full-on Cruella de Vil meets like Miss Trunchbull, that kind of vibe.
Oh my god, I love it already. 5 stars.
I really am just giving so much away, but yeah, no, really, really, really excited about the book, and it will link nicely to End of the Rainbow without being exactly the same, so it'll be nice.
Oh my god, I cannot wait. That sounds incredible. So I mean, as soon as we hear any kind of like information, Ben will have it on his Twitter, I am sure. Yeah. So they'll good. That's what I want. That is what I want. So definitely check out Ben in the description box. I have all of his socials. And again, if you have not yet read Me, My Dad, and the End of the Rainbow, remember, I mean, you've just heard us talk about it and gush about it for the last hour and 15 minutes. So guys, what you doing? Like, I would recommend the Waterstones exclusive because it does have like an interview at the end of it as well. So, and also like just to show people as well, but it does have, I mean, I don't know, do all editions have that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not Waterstones exclusive, but
no, it is for all of you. But yeah, the Waterstones exclusive dub has the interview with me at the end and a little letter to the reader, so you get that exclusive.
And it's just beautiful. It's honestly, it's a gorgeous book, inside and out. So yes, everyone, please do purchase it. So that is the end of the interview. Ben, I hope you had a good time.
A great time. I could stay here all night.
Oh gosh, same. Let's talk about Little Mix again then. So if your Waterstones is closed, waterstones.com is still open, so you can still order online. I had, oh my gosh, Ben, I had so many pre-orders get sent to, well, not sent, but like all of my orders were going to the store, but because all of them are closed, like you either have to cancel them because you can't change the address, you have to cancel them and reorder. I had so many, and some of them were exclusives that you can't get anymore. So I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? But do check out waterstones.com. Don't let me put you off. Okay, so thanks again, everyone, for coming on. Thank you so much to Ben for coming on as well. Like, this was such an honor. So yeah, hope everyone has a good night.